The scream tore through the afternoon air, raw and primal and Finn. Quillen dropped the axe he had been sharpening to sprint toward the sound without thinking. He crashed through the undergrowth of the forest bordering his homestead, branches whipping at his face, his heart hammering against his ribs. In the 3 years he had lived on this frontier land, he had learned to recognize the difference between animal cries and something far worse. This was human or close enough to it. He burst into a small clearing where wildflowers grew thick among the grass, and there she was, an orc woman on her knees, clutching her left thigh with both hands, her face contorted in pain. Her skin was the deep green of summer leaves, and her black hair hung in a thick braid down her back. She was dressed in hunting leathers, a bow lying useless in the grass beside her. When she looked up at him, her amber eyes were wide with something that might have been fear or fury or both. "Human," she gasped, and the word came out like an accusation. Finn froze, his hand instinctively moving toward the knife at his belt, but he did not draw it. The woman was clearly in distress, her breathing coming in sharp, shallow bursts. He saw the way her fingers pressed into her thigh, saw the dark stain spreading across the leather. "What happened?" he asked, keeping his voice level despite the adrenaline still singing through his veins. "Snake," she ground out through clenched teeth, her small tusks catching the light. "Timber viper. Bit me." She released one hand from her thigh long enough to gesture weakly at the grass behind her, where Finn could just make out the telltale pattern of brown and copper scales disappearing into the undergrowth. His stomach dropped. Timber vipers were deadly, their venom swift and merciless. Without treatment, she had perhaps an hour before the poison reached her heart. Maybe less, given how fast her breathing was becoming. "Let me see," he said, taking a step forward. The orc woman's eyes flashed and she bared her teeth at him. "Stay back, human. I do not need your—" Her words cut off in a sharp hiss of pain, and her hand trembled against her thigh. "You will die if that venom spreads," Finn said flatly. "I know what a timber viper bite does. I have seen it before. Let me help you." For a long moment she stared at him, her amber eyes searching his face for something deception, perhaps, or malice. Whatever she found there must have been enough, because her shoulders sagged slightly and she nodded once, a sharp jerk of her head. Finn closed the distance between them and dropped to his knees beside her. Up close, he could see the twin puncture marks on her thigh, just above where the leather of her pants had protected the rest of her leg. The flesh around the wound was already swelling, turning a sickly purple-black. He had perhaps minutes to act. "The poison," she said, her voice strained. "You have to suck it out, now." He looked up at her, meeting her gaze. There was desperation there beneath the pride and pain. She knew what she was asking, knew what it meant for an orc to ask a human for such intimate aid. The prejudice between their peoples ran deep, carved into both cultures by generations of conflict and mistrust. "Are you certain?" he asked quietly. "Do it," she commanded, though her voice shook. "Suck the poison out now, or I die here in this cursed clearing, and my clan will never know what became of me." Finn did not waste another moment. He bent his head to her thigh, his hands steady as they positioned her leg. He could feel the heat of her skin through the leather, could smell the earthy scent of pine and sweat that clung to her. He placed his mouth over the wound and sucked hard, drawing the venom into his mouth. The taste was bitter, metallic, and he spat it quickly into the grass before repeating the process. Again and again, he drew the poison from her flesh, spitting it out, his world narrowing to this single task. The orc woman made no sound, though he could feel the tension in her muscles, the way her leg trembled beneath his hands. He did not know how long he worked. It could have been minutes or hours, but finally he pulled back, spitting one last time before wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. I got as much as I could, he said, his voice rough. But you need to lie still. Let your body fight what is left. She nodded, her face pale beneath the green of her skin. Her eyes were glassy, and Finn realized with a jolt that she was going into shock. Without thinking, he stripped off his shirt and bundled it beneath her head, easing her back onto the grass. "What are you doing?" she mumbled, her words slurring slightly. "Making sure you do not die after I just saved your life," he replied, trying for levity to mask his own concern. He did not know if he had been fast enough, if he had removed enough of the venom. All he could do now was wait. Her hand shot out and gripped his wrist with surprising strength. "Why?" she asked, her amber eyes focusing on him with sudden intensity. "Why would a human help me?" Finn looked at her, at the vulnerability in her face, the genuine confusion in her voice. "Because you needed help," he said simply. "And because leaving you to die would have been wrong." She studied him for a long moment, then released his wrist and let her hand fall to the grass. "My name is Grenna," she said quietly. "Grenna Stonefist of the Ironwood clan. Finn Quillen," he replied, "of nowhere in particular." Despite her pain, she almost smiled at that. A man without a clan, how strange. "Not so strange on the frontier," he said. "Most of us here are running from something or looking for something we could not find elsewhere." "And you, which are you?" He considered the question, then shrugged. "Both, I suppose." Grenna closed her eyes, her breathing beginning to slow, and Finn felt a spike of fear. "Stay awake," he said sharply. "Do not close your eyes yet." "Tired," she murmured. "I know, but you need to stay awake a bit longer. Talk to me. Tell me about your clan." She made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You do not want to hear about orcs, human. Try me." So she did. In a halting voice, growing stronger as the minutes passed, she told him about the Ironwood clan, about the forests they called home in the mountains to the north. She spoke of her mother, a warrior of some renown, and her younger brother, who was training to be a scout. She told him about the great hunts in autumn, when the elk came down from the high country, and the festivals of winter, when her people gathered around massive bonfires and sang songs older than memory. Finn listened, asking questions when her voice began to fade, keeping her engaged. And slowly, gradually, the color began to return to her face. The swelling around the bite began to recede. Whatever venom remained in her system, her body was fighting it off. When the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the clearing in shades of gold and amber, Grenna finally sat up. She moved slowly, testing her leg, and Finn saw her wince but did not offer to help. He sensed she would not appreciate the gesture. "I can walk," she said, more to herself than to him. "Good. But you should not walk far. My homestead is just through those trees. You can rest there tonight, let your body finish healing." She looked at him sharply. "I cannot stay with you." "Why not?" "Because you are human," she said, as if that explained everything. "And you are an orc," he replied calmly. "But I do not see what that has to do with you needing a safe place to recover." Grenna opened her mouth, then closed it again. He could see the conflict playing out across her face, pride warring with practicality. Finally, she nodded once. "One night," she said. "Then I returned to my clan." "One night," Finn agreed. He helped her to her feet, and though she leaned on him more than he suspected she wanted to, she did not complain. Together, they made their way through the darkening forest, back toward the small cabin Finn had built with his own hands 3 years ago. It was not much, a single room with a hearth, a bed, a table, and a few shelves, but it was home, and it was warm. He settled Grenna into the single chair near the hearth and set about building up the fire. She watched him work in silence, her expression unreadable. When the flames were crackling cheerfully, he filled a pot with water from his barrel and set it to heat. "Stew," he said in response to her unasked question. "Nothing fancy, but it will fill your belly." I have rations, she said, gesturing vaguely toward the pack she had managed to keep with her. Save them. You have a long walk ahead of you tomorrow. She did not argue, and Finn took that as a small victory. He moved about the cabin with practiced efficiency, adding dried venison and vegetables to the pot, along with herbs from the bundles hanging near the window. The smell soon filled the small space, rich and comforting. When the stew was ready, he ladled it into 2 wooden bowls and handed one to Grenna. She took it with a murmured thanks and began to eat slowly, methodically. Finn ate his own meal standing, leaning against the hearth, watching her. "You live alone?" she asked after a while, breaking the silence. "Yes. No wife, no children, no," she frowned at him. "Why? Why does anyone live alone? Sometimes it is choice. Sometimes it is circumstance." He paused, considering how much to tell her. "I was a soldier once in the king's army. I fought in the border wars, saw things I would rather forget. When my service ended, I wanted peace, solitude, so I came here to the edge of the frontier and built this place." Grenna was quiet for a moment, digesting this. "You fought orcs," she said, and it was not a question. "Yes." "Did you kill any of my people?" He met her gaze steadily. "Yes." Another long silence. Then, unexpectedly, she nodded. "At least you are honest. Most humans would lie about such things." "I will not apologize for doing my duty as I understood it then," Finn said carefully. "But I will say that the older I get, the less sense war makes to me. All that death, all that suffering, and for what? A border that shifts a few miles one way or another. Pride, for survival," Grenna said quietly. "My people fight because we have been pushed from our lands, hunted like animals. We fight because the alternative is extinction. And my people fight because they fear yours, because they have been taught that orcs are monsters." He set his empty bowl aside. "Both sides think they are right. Both sides think they are justified, and the killing goes on." "You speak like a man who has lost faith," she observed. "I speak like a man who has seen enough killing for one lifetime," he replied. "I want no part of it any more." Grenna studied him for a long moment, her amber eyes thoughtful. "You are strange, Finn Quillen." "So I have been told." She smiled at that, a real smile that softened her features and made her look younger. "I think I understand why you live out here alone. Do you? You do not fit with your own people anymore, just as I do not fit with mine." That surprised him. "What do you mean?" She set her bowl aside and stared into the fire. "I have always questioned things. Always asked why we do what we do, why we hate who we hate. My mother says it is a weakness, that doubt makes a warrior vulnerable, but I cannot help it. When I see human traders in the border towns, I do not see monsters. I see people. Scared people, tired people, people just trying to survive like us. And I wonder if there is not a better way." "That does not sound like weakness to me," Finn said softly. "That sounds like wisdom. My clan does not see it that way. They see it as disloyalty, betrayal even." She looked at him then, and he saw the pain in her eyes, the loneliness. "I think that is why I go on these long hunts alone, to get away from the judgment, the constant pressure to be what they expect me to be." Finn understood that feeling better than she could know. He had felt it himself in the army when he had begun to question the orders he was given, the enemies he was told to kill. It was a lonely thing to see the world differently from everyone around you. "You are welcome here," he said impulsively. "For tonight, at least, you do not have to be what anyone expects. You can just be Grenna." She looked at him, something softening in her expression. "Thank you, Finn." They talked long into the night, the conversation flowing more easily than either of them would have expected. Grenna told him more about her life in the Ironwood clan, about the politics and pressures that governed her people. Finn shared stories from his years in the army, the camaraderie and horror of war, and then from his time on the frontier, learning to farm and hunt and live off the land. When Grenna's eyes finally began to droop, Finn insisted she take the bed. She protested, but he cut her off with a firm shake of his head. "You were nearly killed today. You need proper rest. I will sleep by the fire. I have done it many times before." Too tired to argue further, Grenna accepted. She settled onto the narrow bed with a sigh of relief, her legs still aching but no longer screaming with pain. From the bed, she watched Finn arrange himself near the hearth, using his rolled cloak as a pillow. "Finn," she called softly into the darkness. "Yes, thank you for saving my life. For giving me shelter. For not treating me like a monster." "You are not a monster, Grenna," he replied. "You are just a person who got bit by a snake." She smiled in the darkness, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt something like hope. Morning came soft and golden, sunlight streaming through the cabin's single window. Finn woke to the sound of movement and found Grenna already up, testing her leg by walking slowly around the cabin. She still favored it slightly, but the wound looked much better than it had the night before. "How do you feel?" he asked, sitting up and running a hand through his hair. "Better. The poison is gone. I am just sore now." She looked at him and he saw reluctance in her eyes. "I should go. My clan will worry if I am gone too long." "Will they?" he asked, remembering what she had said the night before about not fitting in. She hesitated. "My mother will, at least, and my brother." Finn stood and moved to the hearth, stirring the coals back to life. "At least let me feed you breakfast before you go. You have a long journey ahead." Grenna agreed, and they shared a simple meal of porridge and dried fruit. The conversation was quieter than the night before, both of them aware that this strange interlude was coming to an end. When the meal was finished, Grenna gathered her pack and bow, checking that everything was in order. At the door, she paused and turned to face him. "I do not know if I will ever see you again, Finn Quillen, but I will not forget what you did for me." "Nor I you," he said. "Be safe, Grenna Stonefist." She nodded, then stepped out into the morning. Finn watched from the doorway as she disappeared into the forest, her green skin and dark leathers blending with the shadows beneath the trees. When she was gone, he stood there for a long moment, feeling the cabin suddenly too empty, too quiet. He told himself it was foolish to feel this way. She was an orc, and he was a man, and their peoples were enemies. One night of shared conversation and unexpected connection did not change centuries of hatred and fear. He would likely never see her again, and that was for the best. But as he turned back to his solitary life, he could not shake the memory of her amber eyes, the sound of her laugh, the way she had looked at him with understanding and acceptance. The days that followed fell into their familiar rhythm. Finn worked his small garden, hunted in the forest, repaired the sections of his fence that the winter had damaged. He tried not to think about Grenna, tried not to wonder if she had made it safely back to her clan, if they had questioned where she had been. But every evening, as the sun set and he sat by his fire, he found his thoughts drifting back to that night. The way they had talked so easily, as if the weight of their people's histories did not exist. The way she had smiled at his small jokes, the way her voice had softened when she spoke of her family. 2 weeks passed, then 3. Finn told himself he was being ridiculous, that he needed to let it go. She was gone back to her life, and he had his own life to live. Then, on a cool evening in early summer, he heard a sound outside his cabin. He rose from his chair, hand moving to the knife at his belt, and opened the door cautiously. Grenna stood there in the fading light, her pack on her shoulders, her bow in hand. But something was different. Her face was drawn, her eyes haunted. There was a bruise on her cheek, and her knuckles were scraped and bloody. "Grenna," Finn breathed, stepping aside immediately. "Come in. What happened?" She walked past him into the cabin, moving with the stiff precision of someone holding themselves together through sheer will. When she turned to face him, he saw tears glistening in her amber eyes, though she did not let them fall. "My clan cast me out," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They said I was a traitor, that I had been corrupted by human sympathy." Finn's stomach clenched. "What? Why would they say that?" "Because I told them," she said. "I told them about you, about how you saved my life, how you showed me kindness when you had no reason to. I thought perhaps it would help them see that not all humans are enemies, that there could be another way." She laughed bitterly. "I was a fool. What did they do? My mother challenged me to single combat to prove my loyalty. When I refused to renounce you, refused to call you a monster, she beat me. Then the clan council met, and they decided I was no longer fit to be part of the Ironwood clan. They gave me until dawn to leave their territory." She looked at him then, and the vulnerability in her face nearly broke his heart. "I had nowhere else to go." Finn closed the distance between them and gently took her pack from her shoulders, setting it aside. "You can stay here," he said firmly, "for as long as you need." "Finn, I cannot ask that of you. You do not owe me anything." "You are not asking, I am offering." He met her gaze. "And you are wrong. I do owe you something. You reminded me that there is more to life than solitude and bitterness. You reminded me what it feels like to connect with someone, to talk and laugh and share. I will not turn you away." The tears finally spilled over, trailing down her green cheeks. Finn did not think. He simply pulled her into his arms, holding her as she wept. She was tall and strong, her body hardened by years of training and hunting, but in that moment she felt fragile, breakable. He held her carefully, offering what comfort he could. When her tears finally subsided, she pulled back, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "I am sorry," she said. "I do not usually fall apart like this." "You just lost everything," Finn said gently. "You are allowed to fall apart." She nodded, then looked around the small cabin as if seeing it properly for the first time. "This will be my home now, I suppose, at least for a while." "For as long as you need," Finn repeated. "But first, let me tend those wounds." He made her sit while he heated water and gathered clean cloth. With careful, practiced movements, he cleaned the scrapes on her knuckles, the cut on her lip, the bruise on her cheek. Grenna sat still throughout, watching him work with an expression he could not quite read. "Your mother did this?" he asked quietly. "Yes. She said I had dishonored our family, dishonored the clan. She said I was weak for showing mercy to a human." Grenna's voice was flat, emotionless, but Finn could hear the pain beneath. "I think a part of her wanted me to fight back, to prove I was still strong, but I could not. She is my mother." "Strength is not just about fighting," Finn said. "It takes far more strength to stand by your principles, to refuse to hate just because you are told to." "You really believe that?" "I do." He finished bandaging her knuckles and sat back. "I have known many strong men who were also cruel, who used their strength to hurt and dominate. And I have known people who seemed weak by the world's standards but who had more courage and integrity than any warrior. True strength is about who you choose to be, not about how hard you can hit." Grenna considered this, then nodded slowly. "I am glad I came here, Finn. Even if I do not know what happens next. We will figure it out together," he said. "One day at a time." Over the following weeks they settled into an unexpected partnership. Grenna was a skilled hunter, far better than Finn, and she took over much of the hunting for their meals. In return, Finn taught her about farming, about how to tend crops and preserve food for the winter. They worked side by side in the garden, weeding and watering, and Finn found himself enjoying the companionship more than he ever had his solitude. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire and talk, or sometimes simply sit in comfortable silence. Grenna carved small wooden figures with her knife, her hands moving with practiced skill, while Finn mended tools or read from his small collection of books. It was domestic and peaceful, and neither of them spoke about what it meant, this life they were building together. But Finn was aware, achingly aware, of how his feelings for Grenna were changing. It was no longer just respect or friendship he felt. It was something deeper, something that made his heart race when she smiled at him, something that made him watch her when she was not looking, memorizing the way she moved, the sound of her voice. He told himself it was foolish, dangerous even. She was an orc and he was a man. Their peoples were enemies. Even if they could overcome their own prejudices, the world outside would never accept them. He had no right to feel this way, no right to want something that could never be. But the heart, he was learning, did not listen to reason. One evening, about 2 months after Grenna had arrived, they were sitting outside the cabin, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. It was a warm night, the air thick with the scent of honeysuckle and pine. Grenna had been quiet all day, lost in thought, and Finn had given her space, sensing she needed time to process something. "I cannot go back," she said suddenly, breaking the silence. "Even if I wanted to, I cannot go back to my clan. That life is over." "I know," Finn said gently. "But I also cannot stay here forever, living in your cabin, depending on your charity. It is not right." He looked at her, confused. "What are you saying?" "I am saying I need to find my own way, build my own life. Perhaps I could build a cabin nearby, become a trapper or a hunter, sell furs in the border towns. It would be hard living alone, but— Or you could stay here," Finn interrupted. Grenna turned to him, her amber eyes wide. "Finn, I have already imposed on you for too long." "You have not imposed. You have been a partner. This place runs better with both of us working it. The garden is thriving, we have more meat than I have had in years, the cabin is in better repair than it has ever been. And more than that." He paused, gathering his courage. "I do not want you to go." "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because I have come to care for you," he said simply. "Because when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I want to do is see your face. Because when I am working in the garden, I find myself listening for the sound of your voice. Because the thought of this cabin without you in it feels unbearable." Grenna stared at him, and he could see the emotions warring across her face, hope and fear and disbelief. "Finn, you cannot mean that. I am an orc. You are a man, our peoples. I do not care about our peoples," he said fiercely. "I care about you. About Grenna Stonefist, who is brave and kind and wise, who makes me laugh and challenges me and makes every day better just by being in it. I know the world will not understand. I know there will be people who will hate us for this. But I am tired of letting fear and prejudice dictate my life. I want to be with you if you will have me." Tears were streaming down her face now, but she was smiling through them. "You foolish, foolish man," she said, her voice breaking. "Do you not know I have been falling in love with you since the moment you knelt beside me in that clearing and saved my life?" Finn's breath caught. "You have?" "Yes. Every day a little more. Every time you were kind to me. Every time you made me laugh. Every time you looked at me like I was not a monster but a woman. How could I not fall in love with you?" He reached for her then, cupping her face in his hands, his thumbs gently wiping away her tears. "Then stay," he whispered. "Not as a guest, not as a temporary arrangement. Stay as my partner, my companion. Stay and build a life with me." "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, I will stay." Finn leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, but she did not pull away. Instead, she met him halfway, her lips pressing against his in a kiss that was tentative and sweet and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. "This will not be easy," Grenna said quietly. "I know. People will talk. They will judge. Some may even try to hurt us. Let them talk. Let them judge. I have spent too much of my life caring what other people think. I will not let it stop me from choosing happiness." She smiled at that, a radiant smile that lit up her whole face. "Then we will face it together." They sat there under the stars for a long time, holding each other, talking about the future they would build. It would not be easy, they both knew that. But for the first time in longer than either could remember, they felt hope. Hope that love could transcend hate, that two people from different worlds could find a way to be together. As summer deepened into its full glory, Finn and Grenna settled into their life together with a contentment that surprised them both. They expanded the garden, adding new rows of vegetables and herbs. Grenna built a smokehouse for preserving meat, while Finn constructed a larger storage shed for tools and supplies. They were preparing for the future, for a life built together on this small piece of frontier land. But they both knew they could not avoid the outside world forever. They needed supplies, things they could not make or grow themselves, which meant going to the nearest settlement, a small border town called Riverbend, about a day's walk to the south. "We should go together," Grenna said one morning as they discussed the trip. "I will not hide here like I am ashamed." Finn understood her pride, but he was worried. "Grenna, you know how people react to orcs in human towns. It could be dangerous." "I am not afraid of danger," she said firmly. "And I am not afraid of ignorant people. If we are going to make a life together, we cannot hide what we are. Besides, they will find out eventually. Better to face it on our own terms." She was right, and Finn knew it. So 2 days later they set out for Riverbend, traveling light, planning to return the same day with the supplies they needed. Riverbend was a rough place, like most border towns. It had grown up around a ford in the river, a natural crossing point that made it a hub for traders and trappers. The buildings were mostly wood and stone, practical and utilitarian. The people were hard-bitten and suspicious, the kind who had learned to be wary of strangers. The looks they received as they walked down the main street were immediate and hostile. People stopped what they were doing to stare. Conversation ceased. A woman pulled her child closer, as if Grenna might suddenly attack. A group of men outside a tavern began muttering among themselves, their hands moving to the weapons at their belts. Finn felt Grenna tense beside him, but she kept her head high, her expression neutral. They made their way to the general store, a squat building near the center of town. The shopkeeper, a heavy-set man with graying hair and a perpetual scowl, looked up as they entered. His eyes widened when he saw Grenna, and his hand moved beneath the counter where Finn suspected he kept a weapon. "We are just here to buy supplies," Finn said calmly, stepping slightly in front of Grenna. "We mean no trouble." "No orcs allowed," the shopkeeper said flatly. "She is with me. We are here to trade same as anyone else." "I do not care who she is with. I do not serve her kind." Finn felt anger flare in his chest, but before he could respond, Grenna put a hand on his arm. "It is fine," she said quietly. "We will go elsewhere." "There is nowhere else," the shopkeeper said with obvious satisfaction. "This is the only store within 2 days' walk, and I will not serve an orc." "Not now, not ever." "Then you will not serve me either," Finn said coldly. "Because she and I are together, we are partners, and if you will not serve her, you get none of my business." The shopkeeper's eyes narrowed. "You are making a mistake, boy, taking up with that creature. People will not forget it." "I am not asking them to forget it," Finn replied. "I am asking them to act like decent human beings, but I can see that is too much to expect from you." He turned and walked out, Grenna beside him. Behind them, he heard the shopkeeper mutter something about orc lovers and traders, but he ignored it. His hands were shaking with suppressed rage, but he forced himself to stay calm. Losing his temper would only make things worse. They made it perhaps halfway down the street before the group of men from the tavern stepped into their path. There were 5 of them, all armed, all looking for trouble. "Heard you got yourself an orc woman," the leader said, a tall man with a scar across his cheek. "That true?" "Step aside," Finn said evenly. "We are leaving, we want no trouble. See, that is the problem. You already caused trouble by bringing that thing into our town." The man spat into the dust at Grenna's feet. "Orcs killed my brother in the war, killed a lot of good men. And here you are, treating one like she is people." "She is people," Finn said. "She is as much a person as you or I." The man laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You are either a fool or a traitor, maybe both. Either way, we do not want your kind here, and we definitely do not want her kind here." "Then we will leave," Finn said. "Let us pass." "Oh, you can leave. But the orc stays. We got some justice to deliver." Finn's hand moved to his knife, but Grenna was faster. In one fluid motion, she had an arrow knocked and drawn, the point aimed directly at the leader's throat. The men fell back, their hands moving to their own weapons. "You will let us pass," Grenna said, her voice deadly calm. "Or I will put this arrow through your throat and the next 4 through your friends before you can draw your swords. I am an Ironwood scout. I do not miss." For a long moment, the street was silent. Finn could see the calculation in the leader's eyes, weighing his pride against the very real threat Grenna represented. Finally, he stepped aside, gesturing curtly for his men to do the same. "This is not over," he said as Finn and Grenna walked past. "You come back here, either of you, and we will not be so merciful." They walked out of Riverbend in tense silence, neither of them speaking until they were well clear of the town. Only then did Grenna lower her bow, the tension draining from her shoulders. "I am sorry," Finn said quietly. "I should have known it would be like that." "You have nothing to apologize for," Grenna replied. "You stood up for me. You risked those men's anger to defend me. No one has ever done that before." "Of course I did. I love you." She stopped walking and turned to face him, her amber eyes shining. "Say that again." "I love you," he repeated, the words coming easier this time. "I love you, Grenna Stonefist. I should have said it before, but I was afraid. Afraid of what it meant, afraid of making things harder for you. But I am done being afraid. I love you, and I do not care who knows it." Grenna dropped her bow and closed the distance between them, kissing him fiercely. When they broke apart, she was smiling through tears. "I love you too, Finn Quillen. I love you so much it terrifies me." "Then we will be terrified together," he said, pulling her close. They made it home as the sun was setting, empty-handed but unbowed. That night they made plans. They would have to travel further for supplies, perhaps to a larger town where one orc among many travelers would not draw as much attention. They would have to be careful, watchful. But they would not hide, and they would not give up the life they were building together. The summer passed into autumn, and their small homestead thrived. Grenna taught Finn to track and hunt the way her people did, reading signs in the forest that he had never noticed before. Finn taught Grenna about crop rotation and seed saving, about all the small details of farming that he had learned through hard experience. They worked hard, their hands calloused and their muscles strong from labor. But they also made time for joy, for long evenings sitting outside and watching the stars, for lazy mornings in bed, for the simple pleasure of being together. One evening in late autumn, as the first frost was beginning to touch the edges of the garden, Grenna came to Finn with a question that had been weighing on her mind. "You ever regret it?" she asked. "Choosing me over your own people?" Finn looked up from the tool he was mending. "Never." "Not once. Why do you ask?" "Because I think about it sometimes, about what you gave up. You could have had a normal life, a human wife, children that would not face the prejudice our children will face. You could have been accepted, welcomed." Instead, you are here with me, isolated, facing the anger of both our peoples. Grenna, look at me. He waited until she met his eyes. I had a normal life once. I was a soldier, surrounded by my own people, doing what was expected of me, and I was miserable. I was empty. I only started to feel alive again when I came here, when I chose solitude and peace over the expectations of society. And then you came into my life, and suddenly I understood what it meant to truly live. To love someone so completely that their happiness becomes more important than your own. I do not regret choosing you. I would choose you again every single day for the rest of my life. She was crying now, silent tears trailing down her green cheeks. How did I get so lucky? She whispered. How did I find you? A snake bit you, he said with a small smile. And you were stubborn enough to demand I help you. She laughed through her tears, and he pulled her into his arms, holding her close. They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's warmth, listening to the sounds of the forest settling in for the night. Finn, she said after a while, her voice muffled against his chest. Yes, will you marry me? He pulled back to look at her, surprise and joy warring on his face. What? I know humans do it differently than orcs. I know there are ceremonies and traditions, but I do not care about any of that. I want to bind my life to yours. I want to make a formal commitment, something that cannot be undone. Will you marry me? Yes, he said without hesitation. Yes, 1,000 times yes. She grinned, a fierce, wild expression that made his heart race. Then we will marry. By the traditions of my people and yours. We will blend them together, create something new, just like we are creating a new life together. They spent the next few weeks preparing. Finn carved 2 wooden rings, simple bands that he polished until they gleamed. Grenna wove a ceremonial cloth using techniques from her clan, incorporating symbols that represented their 2 peoples coming together. They decided to hold the ceremony at the homestead, with no witnesses but the forest and the sky. On a crisp morning in early winter, when the sun was just beginning to warm the frosted ground, they stood together in the clearing where they had first met. Finn wore his best shirt, cleaned and mended. Grenna wore a tunic she had sewn herself, dyed a deep green that matched her skin. They spoke their vows simply, from the heart. Finn promised to honor and protect Grenna, to stand beside her against any hardship, to love her for all his days. Grenna promised to cherish and support Finn, to face the future with courage, to build a life of joy and purpose together. They exchanged the wooden rings, slipping them onto each other's fingers. Then, following orcish tradition, they each made a small cut on their palms and pressed their hands together, mingling their blood as a symbol of their unity. By the old ways of my people, Grenna said, we are now bound, 2 souls made one. By the traditions of mine, Finn added, we are now husband and wife, partners in all things. They kissed then, sealing their commitment, and the forest seemed to sing around them, birds calling, wind rustling through the trees. It was simple and perfect, exactly what they both wanted. That night, they celebrated with a feast they had prepared together: roasted venison, root vegetables from the garden, bread baked fresh that morning, and a bottle of wine Finn had been saving for a special occasion. They ate slowly, savoring every bite, talking and laughing late into the night. As they lay in bed later, wrapped in each other's arms, Grenna spoke softly into the darkness. Do you think anyone will ever accept us? Do you think there will ever be a time when a human and an orc can be together without the world trying to tear them apart? Finn was quiet for a moment, considering. I do not know, he admitted. Maybe not in our lifetime, but maybe someday. Maybe if enough people see that love can cross any boundary, that people from different worlds can build something beautiful together, things will change. We cannot control what others think or feel, but we can live our lives in a way that proves them wrong. We can show them that love is stronger than hate, that understanding is possible. That is a heavy burden to carry, Grenna said. Then we will carry it together. Just like we carry everything else. She smiled in the darkness and pulled him closer. I am glad the snake bit me, she said. I am glad I stumbled into your clearing. I am glad you were brave enough to help me. So am I, Finn replied. Best thing that ever happened to me. Winter came hard that year, the snow piling high around the cabin. But inside, Finn and Grenna were warm and content. They spent the long evenings by the fire, Grenna teaching Finn words in her language while he taught her to read. They told each other stories, shared memories, and made plans for the spring. When the snows finally melted and the first green shoots began to appear in the garden, they received an unexpected visitor. Finn was working outside, repairing the fence, when he heard Grenna shout his name. He ran to the cabin to find her standing in the doorway, staring at a figure emerging from the forest. It was a young orc, barely more than a boy, his green skin pale with exhaustion. He stumbled toward them and Grenna rushed forward to catch him before he fell. Grenna, the boy gasped. Sister. Finn's eyes widened. This was Grenna's younger brother, the one she had told him about. He helped Grenna support the boy into the cabin where they laid him on the bed. Darvin, Grenna said urgently, bringing him water. What happened? Why are you here? The boy Darvin drank greedily, then looked at his sister with haunted eyes. The clan, he said. They are planning something. An attack on Riverbend to avenge perceived insults. They are going to kill everyone, burn the town. I tried to stop them, tried to make them see reason, but they would not listen. So I ran. I ran to find you, to warn you. Finn felt his blood run cold. When? 3 days from now. They are gathering warriors, preparing weapons. Mother is leading them. Darvin looked at Grenna with desperate eyes. You have to stop them, sister. If they do this, the humans will retaliate. There will be war, real war. Both our peoples will suffer. Grenna looked at Finn and he could see the conflict in her eyes. We have to do something, she said. I know, he replied. But what? If we warn Riverbend, they will not believe us. They made it clear they want nothing to do with us. And even if they did believe us, they would just prepare to fight. The bloodshed will happen either way. So what do we do? Finn thought hard, his mind racing through possibilities. We go to the clan, he said finally. We go to your mother and try to convince her to call off the attack. She cast me out, Grenna said. She will not listen to me. Maybe not, but we have to try. Because if we do nothing, people will die, innocent people on both sides. We cannot let that happen. Grenna nodded slowly. You are right, we have to try. She looked at her brother. Darvin, you stay here. Rest. If we do not return in 3 days, you head south and warn anyone who will listen. The boy nodded, too exhausted to argue. Finn and Grenna prepared quickly, gathering supplies for the journey north to the Ironwood clan's territory. It was dangerous, potentially deadly. The clan had cast Grenna out, and a human entering their lands would be seen as an enemy. But they had no choice. They had to try to prevent the coming bloodshed. They traveled fast, pushing themselves hard, sleeping only a few hours each night. On the second day, they entered the deep forests that the Ironwood clan called home. Grenna moved with the confidence of someone who knew every tree and stone, leading them through hidden paths that avoided the outer sentries. But as they neared the clan's main encampment, they were spotted. A group of orc warriors melted out of the trees, weapons drawn, surrounding them. Grenna Stonefist, the leader said, his voice cold. You are not welcome here, you were cast out. I know, Grenna said, raising her hands to show she was unarmed. But I must speak with my mother, it is urgent, lives depend on it. Your mother wants nothing to do with you, traitor. And as for the human, The warrior spat at Finn's feet. "He dies here." "No," Grenna said firmly. "He is my husband. We stand together. If you want to kill him, you will have to kill me first." The warriors looked uncertain, glancing at each other. Killing an outsider was one thing. Killing a former clan member, even an outcast, was another. "Take us to my mother," Grenna demanded. "Let her decide our fate. You do not have the authority to make that choice." After a tense moment, the leader nodded curtly. "Fine, but if you try anything, we will cut you both down." They were marched through the forest to the clan's encampment, a collection of sturdy lodges built among the trees. Orcs stopped what they were doing to stare as they passed, their expressions ranging from shock to anger to something that might have been sadness. They were brought to the largest lodge, where Grenna's mother Grenna Stonefist held council with the clan elders. She was a formidable woman, tall and powerfully built, her black hair streaked with gray. When Grenna and Finn were pushed into the lodge, her eyes widened with shock, then narrowed with fury. "How dare you," she said, her voice like thunder. "How dare you return here after what you did?" "Mother, please," Grenna said. "I know you are angry with me. I know I dishonored the clan in your eyes, but I am here because I must warn you. Your attack on Riverbend will bring disaster on our people." Thara rose from her seat, her hand moving to the axe at her belt. "You dare to speak of our plans, you who betrayed everything our clan stands for. You who chose a human over your own blood." "I chose love over hate," Grenna said, her voice steady despite the fear Finn could see in her eyes. "I chose understanding over ignorance. And yes, I chose Finn because he showed me that there is another way, that humans and orcs do not have to be enemies." "There is no other way," Thara said harshly. "The humans have taken our lands, killed our people, driven us into the wilderness. They are the enemy, and they will always be the enemy." "Some humans, yes," Grenna agreed, "but not all. Finn saved my life when he had no reason to. He gave me shelter when my own clan cast me out. He treats me with respect and love, things I was never shown by the warriors of this clan who only valued me for my ability to fight." "Enough," Thara roared. "I will not listen to this poison. Guards, remove them." "Wait," Finn said, speaking for the first time. All eyes turned to him, hostile and suspicious. "I know you have no reason to trust me. I know I am your enemy by blood and history. But please hear me out. I was a soldier once. I fought in the border wars. I killed orcs." He paused, letting that sink in. "I am not proud of it, but I will not lie about it either. I did what I was told because I believed my commanders when they said orcs were monsters, that you were all savages who needed to be destroyed. And now," Thara challenged, "now I know better. Now I know that you are people, with families and hopes and fears just like us. Now I know that the violence between our peoples is perpetuated by fear and misunderstanding on both sides. And I know that if you attack Riverbend, you will only prove to the humans that they were right to fear you. You will give them the excuse they need to raise an army and come after your clan with everything they have. Is that what you want? More death? More war?" "They deserve it," one of the elders said. "They have earned our vengeance 100 times over." "Perhaps they have," Finn agreed. "But will killing them bring back your dead? Will it restore your lost lands? Or will it simply create more orphans, more widows, more people filled with hate looking for revenge? What would you have us do instead?" Thara demanded. "Bow down, accept our lot as the hunted and hated." "No," Finn said. "I would have you be the better people. I would have you show the humans that orcs are capable of mercy, of restraint, of choosing peace over violence. I would have you prove them wrong about you." "And why should we care what humans think of us?" another elder asked. "Because one day you might want peace," Grenna said quietly. "One day you might want your children to grow up without fear, without the constant threat of war. That day will never come if both sides keep choosing violence. Someone has to be brave enough to stop. Someone has to be strong enough to say enough is enough. The lodge was silent. Finn could see the conflict playing out across the faces of the elders of Thara. They were warriors, raised to fight, to see humans as the enemy. But they were also parents and grandparents, people who had lost too much to war. Finally, Thara spoke. Even if I wanted to call off the attack, I could not. The warriors are ready. They have been preparing for weeks. They want this. Then give them something else to want, Finn said. Give them hope. Tell them that there is a different path, one that does not lead to more death. Tell them about Grenna and me, about how love brought us together despite everything that should have kept us apart. Tell them that if we can find common ground, so can our peoples. You ask the impossible, Thara said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. I ask the necessary, Finn replied. Please. I love your daughter. She is my wife, my partner, my whole world. I do not want to lose her to a war that does not have to happen. And she does not want to lose her brother or you or any of the clan members she still cares about despite how you have treated her. Give peace a chance, just this once. Thara looked at her daughter for a long moment, and Finn saw something shift in her eyes. You truly love him. She asked Grenna. With all my heart, Grenna replied. He is the best person I have ever known, human or orc. And you, Thara said, turning to Finn. You truly love my daughter more than life itself, he said without hesitation. I would die for her. But more importantly, I want to live for her, to build a life with her where she does not have to choose between her heritage and her happiness. Thara closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were wet with tears. You were always the brave one, Grenna, she said softly. Braver than me, certainly. I was too afraid to question, too afraid to see beyond what I was taught, and I drove you away because of that fear. She looked at the elders. My daughter is right. We have been letting hate guide us for too long. If we attack Riverbend, we are no better than the humans who attack us. We become the monsters they think we are. You cannot be serious, one of the elders protested. After all the humans have done to us, after all we have done to each other, Thara corrected. The blame does not lie solely with one side, and the solution certainly does not lie in more killing. She straightened, her voice gaining strength. I will call off the attack. We will not raid Riverbend. Instead, we will send emissaries, try to open dialogue with the human settlements. It may fail, they may reject us, but we have to try. The other elders argued, some agreeing, others resistant, but Thara held firm and her authority as clan leader carried the day. The attack was called off. Messengers were sent to recall the warriors who had already been deployed. When it was done, Thara approached Grenna and Finn. I cannot undo what I did to you, Grenna. I cannot take back the words I said or the blows I struck, but I can apologize. I am sorry, my daughter, I was wrong. About you, about your human, about everything. Grenna embraced her mother, both of them crying. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for being strong enough to change. Thara pulled back and looked at Finn. You take care of my daughter, human, or I will hunt you down, peace or no peace. Finn smiled. I will spend every day of my life making her happy. You have my word. They stayed with the clan for 2 more days, during which Finn met Grenna's extended family and began the slow process of proving to the Ironwood orcs that not all humans were enemies. It was awkward and tense at times, but there were also moments of connection, of shared laughter, of understanding beginning to bridge the gap. When they finally left to return home, Darwin insisted on accompanying them, at least part of the way. As they walked through the forest, the young orc looked at his sister with admiration. You really did it, he said. You stopped the war. We stopped this war, Grenna corrected. There will be others unless both sides keep working toward peace. Then I will work toward peace too, Darwin said. I will be like you, sister, brave enough to question, strong enough to change. Grenna smiled and ruffled his hair. You already are, little brother, you already are. They parted ways at the edge of the Ironwood territory, Darwin heading back to the clan while Finn and Grenna continued south. As they walked, Finn took Grenna's hand in his. You think it will last? He asked. The peace? I do not know, she admitted, but we gave it a chance. That is more than anyone else has done in generations. They arrived home as the sun was setting, the cabin looking warm and welcoming in the golden light. Inside, everything was as they had left it their life, waiting for them to return. That night, as they lay in bed, Grenna spoke softly. When I was lying in that clearing, dying from the snake bite, I could not have imagined this. Could not have imagined finding love, finding home, finding a purpose beyond just surviving. You gave me all of that, Finn. You gave it to me too, he replied. Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions. You made me feel alive again. You made me believe that there is goodness in the world, that there is hope. So what do we do now? She asked. We keep living, he said. We tend our garden, hunt in the forest, maybe have children one day. We show the world that love is possible between humans and orcs. We be the change we want to see. That sounds perfect, she murmured, already drifting toward sleep. Finn held her close, feeling the steady rhythm of her breathing, the warmth of her body against his. Outside, the night was full of sound, crickets singing, an owl hooting, the rustle of wind through the trees. It was the sound of life continuing, of the world turning despite all its troubles. Over the following years, their homestead became something of a legend on the frontier. People spoke of the human and the orc who lived together in peace, who welcomed travelers of both races, who proved that understanding and love could overcome prejudice and hate. Some came out of curiosity, others out of need. Finn and Grenna helped them all, offering food and shelter, advice and kindness. Slowly, grudgingly, attitudes began to shift. The Ironwood clan sent delegations to human settlements, opening trade relationships. Human traders began to visit orcish territories without fear. There were still incidents, still people on both sides who clung to old hatreds. But there were also more people like Finn and Grenna, willing to see past the labels to the person underneath. 3 years after they had stopped the attack on Riverbend, Grenna gave birth to their first child, a daughter with her mother's green skin and her father's brown eyes. They named her Hope, because that was what she represented, hope for a better future, hope that their two peoples could truly find peace. As Finn held his daughter for the first time, looking down at her tiny face, he thought back to that day in the clearing when he had heard Grenna's scream. He had run toward danger without thinking, without knowing what he would find, and that single decision had changed his entire life. Thank you, he whispered to baby Hope, for giving me a reason to believe in tomorrow. Grenna, exhausted but radiant, smiled at him from the bed. She is perfect. She is, Finn agreed, just like her mother. They raised Hope with stories of both their cultures, teaching her to honor her human and orcish heritage equally. They taught her that people were people, regardless of their skin color or the shape of their teeth. They taught her that love was stronger than hate, that understanding was possible if you were brave enough to try. On Hope's 5th birthday, they held a celebration that brought together humans and orcs, people from Riverbend and people from the Ironwood clan. Thara came, now an old woman but still formidable, and she held her granddaughter with tears in her eyes. The shopkeeper from Riverbend even attended, bringing a gift and a muttered apology that Finn graciously accepted. As the sun set and the celebration continued around them, Finn and Grenna stood together, watching their daughter play with human and orc children alike, all of them laughing and running without a care in the world. "We did it," Grenna said quietly. "We really did it." "We did," Finn agreed. "It was not easy and it is not perfect, but it is real, it is progress." "Do you ever think about that day?" she asked. "The day the snake bit me, all the time," he said. "Best day of my life," she laughed and leaned into him. "Mine too." They stood like that as the stars emerged, one by one, in the darkening sky. Around them, humans and orcs shared food and stories, building connections, forging friendships. It was not the world solving all its problems at once, but it was a beginning, a seed planted that would grow over time. And it had all started with a snake bite, with a desperate command, with a man brave enough to help an enemy and a woman brave enough to accept that help. Years continued to pass, and their homestead flourished. Finn's hair began to gray, and lines appeared at the corners of Grenna's eyes, but their love never diminished. If anything, it grew deeper, richer, strengthened by the life they had built together and the changes they had helped bring about. Hope grew into a strong, confident young woman, embodying the best of both her parents. She became a bridge between the communities, moving easily between human and orc settlements, using her unique perspective to help resolve conflicts and build understanding. She was living proof that the divisions between their peoples were artificial, that a better future was possible. One evening, when Hope was 20 and had just returned from a successful diplomatic mission to a distant settlement, Finn and Grenna sat together on the porch they had built, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night?" Grenna asked. "When I told you about my clan, about not fitting in?" "I said a lot of things that night," Finn replied with a smile. "You said that true strength is about who you choose to be, not about how hard you can hit. That it takes more courage to stand by your principles than to simply follow orders." She took his hand in hers. "You were right, and you taught me what real courage looks like, not the courage to fight and kill, but the courage to love and build and hope." "You taught me too," Finn said. "You taught me that walls can come down, that people can change, that love really is stronger than hate." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the evening hope humming inside the cabin, birds settling in for the night, the gentle whisper of wind through the trees. "I have been thinking," Grenna said eventually, "about writing down our story, about leaving a record for future generations so they know how this all started." "That is a good idea," Finn said. "What would you call it?" "I would call it The Snake and the Promise," she replied. "Because that is what it was it not? A snake bit me, you kept your promise to help, and everything changed from there." "I like it," Finn said. "Though you should also include the parts I do not remember, the battles you fought within yourself, the fears you overcame. This is your story as much as mine." "It is our story," she corrected. "Every word, every moment. We wrote it together." As the last light faded from the sky and the first stars appeared, they went inside to join their daughter for dinner. The cabin was warm and bright, filled with laughter and love, a testament to the choice they had made all those years ago to see past hatred and fear to the possibility of something better. And though neither of them knew it, their story would indeed be written down and passed on, becoming a legend that inspired generations to come. The tale of the human and the orc who proved that love could bridge any divide, that courage could change the world, that two people who should have been enemies could become the greatest of partners. It all started with a scream in the forest, a snake in the grass, and a desperate command: "Suck the poison out now." And Finn had obeyed not because he had to, but because it was the right thing to do. That single act of compassion had changed both their lives, had changed their communities, had planted seeds of peace that would continue to grow long after they were gone. As they grew old together, Finn and Grenna never lost the wonder of what they had found. Every morning, Finn would wake to see Grenna's face and feel grateful. Every evening, Grenna would take Finn's hand and remember the man who had saved her life, and then given her a reason to truly live it. They died within days of each other, both of them very old, surrounded by children and grandchildren whose very existence proved that their love had been worth fighting for. Their graves were placed side by side in the clearing where they had first met, marked by simple stones that bore their names and a single inscription. They chose love. The frontier had changed dramatically by then. Trade routes connected human and orc settlements. Mixed communities had sprung up, places where the two peoples lived and worked side by side. There was still prejudice, still occasional violence, but the world was undeniably better than it had been when Finn and Grenna first met. And it all traced back to that moment in the clearing, to a choice made in desperation and answered with compassion, to a woman brave enough to ask for help and a man brave enough to give it, to two people who looked past everything they had been taught to see the person in front of them. Their story became a reminder that change is possible, that walls can be broken down, that love really can conquer hate if people are willing to be brave, to be vulnerable, to choose hope over fear. The homestead remained standing for generations, maintained by their descendants, a place of pilgrimage for those who wanted to be reminded that a better world was possible. People would stand in the clearing where Grenna had nearly died, where Finn had saved her life, and they would remember. They would remember that great changes often start with small acts of kindness, that revolutions can begin with a single choice to do what is right instead of what is easy. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the light slanted through the trees just right, people swore they could feel the presence of Finn and Grenna, still watching over the land they had loved, still standing as proof that love truly could transform the world. The story of the snake and the promise lived on, told and retold, changing slightly with each telling but always maintaining its essential truth. That in a world divided by fear and hatred, two people had found each other and chose love, and that choice had made all the difference.